So this edition of Speakdom is going to be one of the more useful ones, one of the more practical ones that you could execute in your real life and get some pretty good outcomes from it. I'm going to tell you my advice or my thesis on how to ask for more money at your job, how to ask for a raise. I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about this with their boss. I think a lot of folks are afraid to ask for a raise, and because of that, they stay stuck in a similar pay grade for a very long time. Now, I understand that. So the first thing you have to obviously have is the courage to approach. But before you actually have that courage, well, the courage is the first thing, but before you actually make the move, you have to first of all do intrinsic a real intrinsic analysis of who you are, what you do, and what your value is to the company. Let me explain what I mean by that. So, people who run companies or managers don't have to be the owners. They don't like giving raises most of the time. Sometimes they do, most of the time they don't. Sometimes they have to get approval and they have to be the ones to justify the raise. So you really need to look at your situation and see if it's realistic enough for you to ask for a raise. And specifically, what I'm referring to is confidence and leverage. The first thing you have to understand is whenever you're asking somebody for something, you have to make sure that you basically use the appeal to authority method. Now, appeal to authority does not mean that you kiss ass, because that's not going to work. At least most of the time it won't work. Because you don't want somebody to give you a raise based on sympathy. Even though in some cases you'll get that, it might not leave a good taste in that person's mouth when you do it. You want them to give you a raise because you are a value and an asset to that company. And if you, while you're doing your self-analysis of your career and the company, if you can't figure out what kind of an asset you are to the company, it's best that you don't waste your time. Let me give you an example. If you work at Walmart and you stock shelves and you're getting paid, I don't know, let's say $12 an hour. I'm just going to throw a number out there. And you think you deserve 20, if you go in there and you ask for that, you're not going to get it, A, and B, they're going to try to find somebody else to take that job. Why? Because stocking shelves requires virtually no real high level of intellect. It doesn't require that much athleticism, and it's a job that can easily be replaced. And if you work in a job that can easily be replaced, your leverage is going to go down. Now, the problem is, because of this thing called the human ego, and I'm not saying that you're egotistical, but people are, and some people are and don't realize it when it comes to something like this. You have to really look at this realistically and look at your contributions to that company. Just because you work hard and you have back pains every day does not mean that your boss is going to care. They might pretend to care. They might actually care but not be able to justify the raise, or they might not care at all. You understand? And it might not do it. So you're going to want to really ask for this raise when you know that you're some kind of an asset to that company. Now, there's different degrees of this. This is a spectrum. If you are a tippy-top salesperson in a sales job, and you know you've made that company money, and you have records of all the sales you've made, especially if it's from their own analytical department, that's going to help you big time when it comes to asking for a raise. Because at that point, if you've already developed the skills to be a good salesman, I mean really good salesman, you can get a job in many different places that will pay you more. So you've already got good rapport, and not good rapport, we'll talk about that next. You've already got a good leg to stand on. If you're selling things effectively on the phone or in person, there are places you can go and take those skills to make more money. There are some car dealerships that pay top dollar commissions per sales. If you really are a really good salesman and you work your way up to selling things like being a realtor or selling like yachts, boats, cars, planes to like wealthy people, You could make one sale a year and get enough commission to pay for the entire year, dude. Seriously, there's people out there who can do this. I've seen them do it. I met one that did it. So, not saying you're on that level. I'm just showing you the difference between the tippy top and like kind of the middle. So, if you feel like you are an asset to that company, you should approach it that way. But you don't want to be overly confident. You don't want to be cocky. If you can be replaced, because the truth is, guys, most jobs you can be replaced, especially if it's manual labor. You can be replaced. That's just the God's honest truth. My father was a foreman during most of his career, made pretty decent money, but he was the only guy who knew how to basically drive every kind of vehicle at the place he worked at. Nobody else had that training. So because of that, he kept that job for a long time. But in time, he got old. Father Time came along, the one enemy we cannot beat, and he wound up having to leave the job because it's still manual labor. If you can manage to have a skill where you learn many things about that company and how it works to where you can kind of be a chameleon and work in different parts of the company, that's also going to help you. You have to really sit down and do a low ego, honest to God, introspective look at what you offer for the company. And if you can't figure that out, dude, then it might not be a good idea to ask for the raise. Now, when you do approach the boss, you got to make sure that, you have to make sure you use, and the thing is with some of you guys, I really do wish that some of you guys would study psychology because you'll learn a lot. Not necessarily how to manipulate people, although that is going to be useful in a business sense, right? But also how to avoid being manipulated, because you have to understand, if you ask for a raise and the boss comes up with some reason to not give it to you, even if you know you're qualified, like for example, if you have the right approach, you ask them for the raise and they say, well, our budget's not really looking like we can do that right now or whatever, that's kind of a red flag. And if you've really got sales skills, you should at the very least consider, not saying you should do it, but consider looking for other opportunities in sale that will pay you more. You have to love yourself, but you have to be real with yourself. And the truth is that a lot of people talk a lot about job security. There is no such thing as job security. Unless you are at the top of your field. Like if you're a surgeon and there's only like a handful of brain surgeons in the world that know how to do what you do, then you're going to make serious money. Cosmetic, invasive, whatever. If you're, let's say, a cop, there are some times when cops can ask for raises, especially with jobs that are considered dangerous. But at the same time, you're not irreplaceable. You understand? And I think a lot of folks think they're irreplaceable. And then boom, they get fired. And then they think, oh man, I did this, I did that. Even if you're the top salesman in that company, unless you are the top by a relatively large margin, you don't matter as much as you think you do. And that's why you have to have some real self-analysis. So when you go in there, have your game plan ready. And you don't want to ask for a raise by just asking for one. This is where I talked about the whole psychology thing, because I want you to learn how not to get taken advantage of. You kind of want to go in there and say, I've been looking at my numbers, at my performance, and, consider this. Do you think that I've earned maybe a little bit more money? Do you think I've earned to get paid a little bit better? And then you could bring up your credentials and bring up your work history. If you're somebody who shows up late, takes long lunches, spends too much time goofing off with their friends, doesn't get any work done, you're probably not going to get that raise. If you've been written up several times, you're probably not going to get that raise. I'm just keeping it real with you. I'm telling you how bosses think. And some bosses just can't reason with them. So it is what it is. Hopefully yours is not like that. But you got to really look at what you bring to the table. And if you approach it in a very honest way, like don't say, I think I deserve more money. No, you have to say, consider. You have to use words like, consider this. I used that in a couple speak-thems ago. Or, what if? Like, use that. to open up your sentences. What if maybe you paid me a little bit more? I think I've earned it. I feel like I've earned it. Do you think I've earned it? And then you might actually get some feedback, because then the next question is, if the boss does not think you've earned it, then your next question is, what do you think I can do to earn it? And just because you ask that question, you're going to get so much respect from that boss, because they're going to look at you and they're going to say, okay, this guy wants a raise, but their defenses are going to go down, because you are literally going in there saying, I want to get paid more and I'm willing to work harder to get paid more. What do you think I should do? What can I improve on? That's something you should, if you get rejected, don't just be mad. Control your emotions. So what can I improve on to eventually get this raise? And just you saying that, and then if you actually work at it, dude, I've had situations where this happened to me once, and I remember I did exactly that, and they came back a week later and were like, yeah, we approved your raise. I'm like, I thought you said you couldn't do it. Yeah, well, I made some phone calls and we got it done. I'm telling you, man, this happens all the time in the real world. It's almost like how I did that, speaking about how when a girl rejects you, the worst thing you can do is call her like names, because sometimes a rejection is literally a test. Not all the time now. Not all the time. Don't get creepy. But sometimes if you are rejected by a chick and then you call her names, you've lost every chance that you may have had of someday making it work. You understand? Same thing here. You want to control your emotions. But if you feel like you've earned it, look at your situation. Are you disposable? Be honest. If you don't have a lot of skills and you have a job where you're doing the same thing over and over again, or if it's a very large company, if the company's very large, I mentioned Walmart, Chase, where you've got go-getters there, then, what else is there? It's going to be more difficult, but not impossible. Not if you do it right. Also, if you are in sales and you're getting paid commission, that's a great way to because if you're getting paid only commission, you can't really do this. But if you're getting paid base pay plus commission, you could always bring up like, hey, here are my numbers. Like, I'd like a little bit more base pay. I appreciate the commission, but I've really worked hard. I've gone above and beyond. I'm always on time. I'm not late. I do my job. When you bring up your qualifications, and when you bring up the feats you've accomplished by working hard, it will put things into perspective for that boss, and they'll consider giving you the raise. You gotta check your ego at the door, yo. It's all about the art of negotiation. You definitely want to look into this too. Now, I'm not gonna go any deeper on this video about like how much should I ask for, because that's too subjective. There are literal negotiation tactics that you can employ here to get the number that you want, or at least get a number close to what you want. I'm not gonna go into that here. I should make y'all pay for that, but I'm not gonna do it. I think it needs a separate video. But hopefully these tips help, man. Just look at your situation, look at what you can bring to the table, and most important, have respect. Plus, if your boss likes you, if you and your boss have good chemistry and good rapport, that could also help you. You can be super professional, or you can be, professional, but also kind of a good guy to have around. If you increase employee morale, if people like you, these are all factors. These are all things. If you're the guy who's had women complain about you because you've been creepy, you're probably not going to get the raise, dude. In fact, you're lucky to have a job at this point. You have to really look at your situation objectively. Take your head out of your own ass and come up with a strategy. Go in there and execute. And if you don't get what you want, that's okay, because you can always work around it. Hope this helped. I really do. Take care.